Hello and welcome to the session of Wikimania 2021 about Wikimedia Enterprise. This is the new project being built by the Wikimedia Foundation for an API suite specifically for the commercial sector who reuse Wikimedia content under a free license for massive effect, both commercially for profit motive, which is perfectly fine and good in the context of a free license, as well as distributing Wikimedia content downstream to their customers, many, many millions of them, and in increasing numbers. Until this project, we really haven't, as a movement, spoken to these kinds of reusers of Wikimedia content in their own language, with a product offering that is stable and high speed and specific for the needs of that very specific use case. There are APIs and database dumps and, of course, scraping the website that is available for anyone. But this is a really quite unique use case that we've not deliberately talked to before. Enter Wikimedia Enterprise. We have a lot of documentation about this project that doesn't yet have a public face. The commercial product launch will be happening in a couple of months' time. But there's a lot of documentation about this both on Meta and on MediaWiki.org under the page Wikimedia Enterprise, including FAQs relating to the financial aspects, to the transparency of documentation aspects, the principles and procedures. This presentation today is specifically about the technological infrastructure. It's a tech presentation and there will be a Q&A afterwards. If you'd like to learn more about the why and how of the principles, the business model, the finances and so forth, the transparency and how this relates to the rest of the Wikimedia ecosystem of projects and communities, then I encourage you to come to that chat or to any one of our monthly Q&A office hours that we run. You can find information about that also on Meta at Wikimedia Enterprise. So for now, I'd like to introduce Ryan Brownlee, the product manager of Wikimedia Enterprise, to give you a behind-the-scenes tour of the technical infrastructure that is or that will be Wikimedia Enterprise when we launch as a commercial service very soon. Ryan? Well, hopefully, there we go. Here it is.
Hey, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. This is my first Wikimania. And although it's bittersweet that I'm not all meeting all of you in person, I'm really glad that we were able to do it because it's been pretty exciting kind of building this out and working with you all over the past year. And today I wanted to talk about Wikimedia Enterprise and I wanted to focus more on the product end of it and kind of some of the technical approaches that we've taken, kind of where we're at now. And then after this, I think we're going to hang out at table 9 on the 10th floor in Remo. And I'm happy to ask or answer any specific questions around it. But a little of this might be review, but I'm going to try to trickle in a lot of the new updates and stuff that we've been doing. It's been pretty fun over here. And so let's go. All right, so Wikimedia Enterprise, I think Liam did a good job going into this. What is the reason that we're doing it? There's a lot of mission-driven reasons that this whole project's begun. My end of this is trying to find out kind of where the gaps have been in the free APIs for this very specific bulk commercial reuse case. What I can say is that when we're talking about commercial reusers, through our research, we found pretty much folks are caching Wikimedia data, that's Wikidata, Commons in some capacity, the Wikipedias, and all the other language text-based projects. Kind of the first big mandate over the past year on this project has been to build what I call the pipes of Wikimedia. If you want a massive pipe that is stuck into your infrastructure and feeding data in real time so that you can keep your mirror and cache on your side and do whatever you need with it, that has been the hole that we are trying to fill. It's not something that's easily filled by querying REST base every single time you need an update, or listening to a page of changes, etc. I think there's a lot of opportunity in kind of building one product around this. And what I'll go into in this talk too is how having one product and one pipe to talk about actually helps us discover some of the areas that kind of not specific to bulk reusers. There's actually some larger problems in the data when it means to using it on the outside. So I want to start by walking through this, and then I'll go through a little demo. We've built 3 different APIs, and this is what I'm calling the pipes. The first is a Firehose API. This is intentionally named similar to other industry standard. Twitter might come to mind. It's named similarly. The context here is if you plug this in, it'll feed you changes. You're able to kind of decide what changes you want. You're able to filter them out to match the needs of your infrastructure. You can receive these as a push, something that's hitting your infrastructure, not constantly polling for these. And then you're able to actually customize the JSON schema that comes out on the other side. So you can pick the data that you need. An example of this is, I don't want, if you're taking a knowledge graph on the other end of this and you are just looking for stable updates of an article on, the United Kingdom, those might come few and far between when it comes to a lot of the editorship between updates, but you're able to actually decide criteria that might fall into other data points to say, I want this update when, there's a flagged revision or there's an approved something or other as it comes in. Just providing this type of flexibility is something that's been sought after instead of going through the weeds of a lot of the recess changes and event streams types. So I call this one strategy to get data in. You're able to watch it in real time happen. And then on the other end, the customer client end, you're able to actually decide what you need and want. Structured content API, this is similar to REST base. It lets you go and decide the type of data that you want. Same type of customizable schema, same thing here. And then the bulk content API are 2 zip files effectively. It's a bulk corpus update of every wiki daily or hourly changes throughout the day that they'll update. If you call it at noon, it'll be everything that changed since 12 a.m. UTC. If you call it at 2, it'll be everything that changed since in the day until 2 p.m. So I just wanted to give this fresher at the top, and I'll show you some actually cool stuff here. Yeah, so one pretty cool thing we've been able to do in the Firehose is we actually can stuff a lot of events into one. Kind of the concept of a page update, similar to a revision update. We can do page moves. We can do page, like a revision create. We can do a change in an OR score or something equivalent. So you can actually filter out the different events, but actually have one stream. This all comes in a schema. Let me actually pull this up. This one takes a while to run. And this is constantly appending. So if you hook in to the object here, then you're actually just getting a feed of JSON objects. You're taking them, triaging, and then turning them into something on the other end. And kind of what's coming in our next release is, and I'll talk a little bit more about the schema, is the ability to actually, what I was saying before, decide what you actually need in this process. So this is the event stream, and I think this is a really cool, it's a Firehose, but it's similar to the event stream that we have in Wikimedia. And I think what will evolve out of this is starting to decide on product some of the work that we can actually tailor the view of the wiki universe to the outside. One thing that is exciting, especially around visibility changes and some of the things that happen in the wiki ecosystem that are extremely important to actually being an editor and deciding whether or not something could potentially have been a bad revision, and the same kind of tools that an editor will go through as they're actually figuring out whether or not they should dive deeper into sources, etc. And so starting to take some of those signals and turn that more into programmatic data, the same type of public stuff that is available to everybody's eyes, is something that I think everybody beyond just commercial reusers can use as they're actually jumping into, trying to get a better data feed in general. Yes, okay. I'll talk a little bit about this as well. Right here we have two endpoints. One is the Json Diffs. These are the changes daily, and the exports. One way that you could use this is, I want to download every day English Wikipedia, Spanish Wikipedia, Arabic Wikipedia. Okay, you're only going to do that once a week, and then you can actually change that via, I want an update, every 6 hours, and just get the changes as they occur. So there's different ways to create the system on the other end. And kind of our first approach has just been, we want to get easier tools to do this. Without belaboring too much on this point, if the first kind of part of this project was building these pipes, I think the second part of this product initiative is really to start to make the water in those pipes easier to use. I've touched on that over time. I'm just trying to introduce the kind of broad idea, but we start to be able to do things like this. And this has been a conversation on Fabricator, something I can link kind of outward after this. But we get to add a bunch of data points to the schema and start deriving new things out of it. These are attaching over to QIDs, different components. A lot of this stuff already exists in the ecosystem, but putting it into one feed is effectively one of the earliest differentiators we have, alongside of SLAs and reliability guarantees, support, etc. Those are for different conversations, but talking to the product initiatives at this point, we're actually able to jump in and start to amend things and add more signals. One of the things actually I think me and Liam will work to have broader communication around is actually thinking through some of the ways that we can be productive on signals that we would add. I think a lot of us, including myself, believe that obviously privacy signals aren't as good as just natural, the systems that our own communities have set up in order to stop or to create better editor flows. A lot of those things that happen very much in the public are not accounted for when you're an external reuser. Typically, they will just take a slab of wiki text and try to turn that in without a care of what it's actually doing. And so kind of our next initiative here, and this is, I'm copying over a slide that I gave back in March when we started kind of talking broadly about this project and some of the things that we're considering. There's a lot of different directions that we could point to that are problems that folks from the outside have had with the content as they've used it. Kind of the area I think we're steering, or some of what we're building out and prototyping, I'm speccing it currently, is starting to look around anomaly and credibility signals, and how some of these signals within our own community that we use and take for granted for our projects, products as editors, readers, etc., could actually be used in a more programmatic setting. So in here lies a lot of work to come. It will live within this kind of general suite of APIs. And I guess I have 6 minutes. Sorry, I was rushing through, but yeah, I would love to talk a little more about what I mean behind some of this. I think there's one of the areas that's particularly interesting to me right now is around anomaly detection and credibility signals. I think that I made this chart months ago around fresher, the kind of paradigm spectrum between fresh and safe content on our projects. I don't actually necessarily think either of those words are indicative of what they actually mean. But I think taking a naive approach from the outside of, okay, this just had an OR score above a certain amount can actually lead to missing a lot of meta context that can actually decide whether this is a revision that is worth propagating into a knowledge graph, thus turning into something that you go to another product. Starting to dive into that stuff is what we will eventually append to this schema that you see, and you'll be able to grab it out. Getting smarter around that. Yeah, other areas as well, like to these feeds, we're looking to start adding. One of the things that has been heavily requested is around parsing Wikipedia content, starting to find some of the breaking down the page components. That's something that we're exploring as well, especially through Parsoid. So it's ways to kind of deduce, okay, we're not just feeding you a slab of HTML, but we want to get that down to a level that's predictable. This is a really hard problem, obviously, and I think it's something that's been like worked on heavily within the Wikidata ecosystem, because you're effectively extrapolating facts and turning those into what is actually the concept of knowledge. But starting to like think a little more clearly about that work is also, but I do think in terms of the next 6 months, and this is what we'll start to like release as we start to get more specs out into the world, is around kind of like the ways that we can augment data sets. And then the stuff on the top, optimized Wikidata ontology, Wikimedia wide schema, are stuff that are kind of like more in the back burner. I wanted to use this as an update of some of this stuff. There's quite a bit of technical work behind all of this. There will be time to ask those questions. My Media Wiki page is My Media Wiki page, or the general Wikimedia Enterprise talk page is a good place to ask these questions. I'm pretty open to chatting. I'm also on Fabricator. Our board lives under Wikimedia Enterprise. But I think we will go out into table 9 on the 10th floor after this. I also plan on like putting some of this out. This is out. This is an open source project, obviously, so folks can go. But a lot of what we're releasing in the next couple weeks is actually like adding work to these schemas and starting to think through what things should be called, etc. So we're doing a big update right now. One thing that we'll also have opportunity for is having larger working groups to jump into what some of the signals could be. If you're interested in that, reach out to me directly. My email is attached to this, I believe, and we can talk through it a little more. But if not, I'll pass it back to Liam to wrap us up.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Yes, so we will be discussing, anyone who wants to join us afterwards, live in Building 6, 10th floor, Table 9. The one thing that I'd like, if you have a couple of seconds to mention, is what are we doing with Wikidata?
Oh, yeah. So for now, what we're kind of exploring here is like we have these feeds of changes. These are things that are used from the outside. Exploring ways that we can add Wikidata into those same feeds, the change props, the bulk downloads, etc. So right now, Wikidata is done on a daily basis, but some of those change, like revisions, the hourly changes, is stuff that we would start to like add into our flow. So right now, we're not touching much around the content. It's like, or obviously we don't touch the content on this project. It's just kind of more about the style of it and the way that we actually get it out. But yeah, so that'll be something that we'll communicate out. That's still very much in like what product vision, where should we go next with some of this work? Oh, okay. I think T9, 10th floor. Liam, you're on mute.
See you all soon.